Hi, today I want to add an element to the discussion we've been having. Last week we talked about the difference between existing and really living, especially as you're thinking about your life and moving from your primary occupation into retirement, whatever that looks like for you. Even if it's just a change from your primary position to a consultant role or a part time position somewhere. It's a major life transition. So I challenge you to think back. What are the major life transitions you've already navigated? I'll give you a hint of a few. When you finished high school and transitioned into whatever was next, when you got married, had children, changes of jobs, moved to new locations, lost loved ones, had major health crises, whether temporary or long term, car accidents. Most of us have experienced a few big life transitions by the time we're nearing retirement. And we know how life altering they can be. But for some reason, I find a number of people don't think about the transition to retirement as being as big of an issue as they do some of those other things. But it's in the top 10. And I've seen a number of people experience some internal changes that they've navigated on their own, and way too often they've done that without success. And usually that has been related to more their mental health and then how that has impacted all the rest of their life. Now, for a lot of people, they think of mental health as a taboo word. They don't want to talk about it. Being mentally ill has gotten a terrible stigma. I want us to move beyond that because just as our physical health is an important part of who we are and something to be maintained, our mental health is at least as important. And that includes things like feeling depressed once in a while, feeling anxious once in a while, but it can go to real clinical depression or real chronic anxiety. It can also include things like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. But typically, by the time you reach retirement, you've either known that you had those conditions and you've been monitoring and treating them for a long time, or you likely do not have them. Those are typically diagnosed earlier in life. So when I'm thinking about the transition to retirement, I'm thinking a little bit more about the depression and the anxiety and the loss of sense of self that can lead to a level of despair. Those are the things I want you to think about. I am finding that with some planning, kind of almost like pulling back the curtain and taking time to think about what those next phases of life will look like and what you really want to get out of those, because they can be amazing. By planning ahead and identifying what are those things that you want to engage your time, those things that are going to be your interests in that next phase. By doing that ahead of time, the transition is much simpler and there tends to be a lot less anxiety, depression, and sense of loss. There are some startling statistics coming out that I'm seeing just in the last few weeks about the toll that the pandemic is having on everyone's mental health. And so I want to encourage you, don't ignore that. Don't suppress that. I'm Michelle Fritsch. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I am board certified in geriatrics, which means I've spent my life caring for people pretty much over the age of 60. And I could tell you story upon story of people who tried to deny their mental health. And it comes out in a lot of different ways, often in chronic pain syndromes. It comes out in behaviors that the person would not have wanted to display, but they are because they haven't known what to do with these things that are greatly impacting their thought processes and their overall well-being. So again, I'm here to encourage you. Let's talk about mental health. Let's take away the stigma, because we all experience mental health ups and downs. It's important to treat those. There's some study that I just read that says that only about 50% of people with a diagnosable, treatable mental health change in their life actually seek treatment. Only about 50%. So that means if you know somebody being treated for depression, you know somebody else who also has it and is not being treated. If you know somebody who's receiving care and therapy for their anxiety, you also know someone else who is suffering with anxiety and not receiving that level of support. 80% of the people that I work with, thinking about people around the age of retirement, especially men, there's some data that 80% who commit suicide never sought help for mental health. Breaks my heart. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anyone. So let's continue this conversation about the very important topic of mental health, and it's more poignant and important than ever as we continue to navigate this pandemic. Things are continuing to change. There are a lot of unknowns. If you want to talk about it, I would love to chat with you. I am not a psychologist or counselor or psychiatrist, but I know some great people who are, and I would love to point you in the right direction. So you can reach me here, Michelle at retirewellness.com. Contact me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and let's start the conversation. Thank you. Have a great day.